Just skip it. Good. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
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 So Chairman Dean is not attending the meeting this morning due to a conflict. Is that correct, Sarah?
Correct.
All right. Conflict of interest. So I'm going to do my best to chair it through in his place. And we can get going right away and get to the right page. And if you wouldn't mind doing a roll call, Jasmine, please.
Oh, so Mark, this is Sarah.
Yeah.
A couple of housekeeping things. One is Jasmine's off today, so Marilyn's going to take over Jasmine's typical meeting duties. And then also two is if the administrator has allowed you to be unmuted, do not mute yourself because you won't be able to unmute yourself once you mute it. So she's going to go around and unmute everyone again, and then do not mute yourself. If you accidentally do, just wave and we'll do that. But
Okay. I'm sorry, I appear to be in the dark here, but anyway, voice is fine. You can see it's me. All right. So then, Marilyn, you're going to take the roll call, please.
Tim Dean, Mark Doyle,
Yes, here.
Kathy Bauer,
Here.
Jamie Picone,
Here.
Don Sagliano,
Here.
Al Torre-Gianni.
Here.
All set.
Very good. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Are there any conflicts of interest amongst those attending? I know we've... All right. So hearing none, Sarah, we have a proof of meeting notice.
yes, the meeting notice was posted on September 28th.
Excellent. And are there any bills and communications to discuss?
No.
Great. So the next item then is passage of the minutes from the September 9th meeting. Is there any discussion? Has everybody had a chance to read over them? If not, could I have a motion
So moved.
in a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jamie. And let's do a roll call for all of those in favor, please.
Mark Doyle,
Aye.
Kathy Bauer,
Approved.
Jamie Picone,
Approved.
Don Sagliano,
Don Sagliano, approved.
Al Torre-Gianni.
Approved.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So that's the minutes. Good morning. Very good. Now, Marilyn, you don't have a report from the Treasurer's Department?
No, because it's October 2nd. We just ended the month. Well, I'll have one at the next meeting on the 14th or 15th of October.
Perfect. Perfect. And reports from any committees?
No, not at this meeting. We will have one at the regular scheduled meeting.
All right. And then I guess, may I ask, under the title of unfinished business, looking at our dates, and it's appropriate to ask whether Nuvance was able to meet the September 30th deadline?
So I haven't heard back from the people from Nuvance yet. I haven't spoken to them, but they are expected to appear on the September or the October, I'm sorry, the October 14th meeting.
Good. All right. Excellent. So that being the case, we'll go on to discussing this final resolution for Bard College. And do you want to lead that, Sarah and Don?
So,
Sure.
okay, I'll start and Don will tag team on this. So we're here this morning to consider the final board resolution for Bard College. They are asking the board for assistance for a tax exempt bond to be estimated to be around $250 million, no more than $270 million. The bond will mostly be used to refinance some existing debt. A portion of it will be for some renovations and some modifications to the campus, as well as to fund some reserves. Yesterday morning, we did hold the public hearing, of which you did receive minutes of the public hearing, as well as written comments yesterday afternoon. Don was the hearing officer, and then I'm going to pass the torch over to him to fill in my details.
Yeah, the hearing. You read what the people had to say. There were questions about the environmental assessment form being sufficient or accurate, and as we indicated, there's no question in my mind that this is a type 2 action under SEQR. We've reviewed all of those or addressed those. So under the circumstances, that issue was resolved by the board at the previous meeting, and I think that their position is unassailable. Going through the remainder of it, this is just a typical bond resolution for under LLC for a not-for-profit, and we've just authorized this to go forward. At this point, the BARD board has to meet, and then there will be a marketing of the bonds, and then if all goes well, they expect to close at some point within the very near future. That's pretty much all I have.
Yeah, I know that we are doing this special meeting and in order to hasten the ability of BARD to market these bonds, and hopefully that timing is in their favor. That was pretty much the message, right, Sarah?
Yes, and Mark, we have with us today Ton Toei, he's the CFO at Bard College, and Stephanie Massey, their counsel. So if the board has any questions, they're here to respond to any of those.
Okay, welcome to both of you.
Thank you. And if it's helpful, I'm happy to just frame some of the project. I know everyone has seen it, but.
I think that would be very helpful and interesting to all of us since we're gathered.
Great. Well, first, I want to thank the committee for meeting off cycle. As you said, it is helpful to us because this helps to get us in the market before the election, ideally, whichever way that goes, what we know is that it'll create some uncertainty. So I know that this is coming together at an off time for you, so I appreciate that. And I also want to thank Sarah and especially Don, who have been immensely helpful through this process. Some of you will be aware that my predecessor was pursuing a large refinancing with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And when I took over, it's important to me that we keep money locally wherever we can. And obviously working with partners like the LDC, that's of interest to me. We've done that throughout the institution with moving banking locally, moving, really trying to preserve employment despite the corona crisis. And this refinancing is really an important piece of that. So a large chunk of this bond issuance is refinancing existing debt, both an outstanding IDA bond, as well as a collection of different banking debts that have been acquired for new facility expansions over time, as well as other purposes. So it's going to help us really strengthen the balance sheet in a way that helps us to do that employment preservation. Any of the new money that goes into this are largely looking at facility improvements that really help us with advancing the energy efficiency of a lot of these buildings. So I think that that's why we have a pretty clear case of type 2 actions. But some of these, and any of you that have been to campus have seen kind of the size and age of some of the buildings are significant investments, especially when it comes to equipment on places like our Performing Arts Center. You know, we're really trying to keep those as efficient as facilities as they can be. So this is, you know, obviously a large and instrumental refinancing for us, and I appreciate the consideration, because being able to market a large piece as tax exempt is going to help us in the ultimate rates that we can achieve.
Excellent. Wish you luck with that.
Thank you.
Does anybody on the committee on the board have any questions or comments?
I'd like to see that BART definitely, since they like to utilize local banks, local, you know, all the other items that they're talking about local, this time try to tend to use local contractors from these areas, because, you know, we don't like money going to Boston. And even though they may say that they're local, they're not. They're out of Boston. The checks go to Boston. Taxes go to Boston. We got to keep the construction work up there local labor force, and then do the best you can to utilize local contractors. We understand about sometimes specialty items, but I've seen a lot of work out there go in a lot of directions, and it's not always local.
Yeah, I definitely hear you, and the nature of these projects are all ones that we can keep largely local. Yeah, we're aligned in that view. You know, I have no interest in sending money to Atlanta or Boston when we have such a large presence in this community, and especially in the face of the Corona crisis, where we know that tax revenue is collapsing and employment's collapsing everywhere. Nobody's insulated from that. So we really have tried to preserve all employment on campus, but then continue to use all of our local vendors too.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. It's encouraging. Is there anyone else?
I have a question.
Sure. Go ahead.
Thank you, Acting Chairman Doyle, Don Stagliano. My question for the college would be, could you speak to, in a deeper discussion of the refinancing of approximately $200 million of existing debt, and the acquisition of $30 million for additional renovation and upgrades? Could you speak to that in a deeper meaning as to, well, currently what is the interest rate or amortization on the existing debt, and what your expectations would be upon the refinancing and the future debt, and what impact that has in your ability to stay competitive and to minimize your cost? And in addition to that, can you speak to the level of the endowment that the college currently has? Because many people in the public think that, you know, the colleges and universities that we have within Dutchess County have these very, very huge and large endowments, and why should such a well-financed and well-established organization be coming to get, you know, exemptions or relief, or in this case, giving the college the ability for the debt acquisition through the LDC, rather than other providers such as the New York State Dormitory Authority or other third-party entities?
Yeah, I'm just making notes on all the parts of that question. Thank you. So we have a whole collection of debts, but the IDA bonds are a blend of 5%. So that's the blended rate on that. We still have significant term on that debt, but this would be extending term. So in that sense, even though we're rolling all of our debt together, it's extending term. So there's an operating advantage to us, even if we come in at or near the same interest rate. I'm hoping that we can actually beat that in part because of some of the appeal of the tax exempt piece. So looking at what's happening in the market, obviously there aren't a lot of transactions that have happened post-COVID, but the ones that have are encouraging for us. And I think that this is a deal of the size that it can garner the interest of a lot of institutional investors and people that could help to drive that rate down. So in terms of the level of the endowment, BARD is actually unique from some of our local peers. You know, unlike Vassar that has, I think, $1 billion in the bank, almost all of our endowment is restricted to a couple of programs. So it's not for the general use of the institution in the way that it is at Vassar. So where there's, you know, essentially their savings account and then their endowment is sloughing off a lot to defray operations, that hasn't been the history of BARD. What we've done is we've actually, through programming and through really trying to focus on expanding the presence and reach of the institution, we've been able to attract money from what I call a living endowment. So the board of trustees and a lot of the donors to the institution that come in that wouldn't naturally be aligned as alumni or just local people, they're getting interested in the mission and programming of what we do and willing to help us fund some of that. So we are a bit different from a lot of the private institutions in that vein. That said, you know, that's a focus for us in the future. And this is an important step as we kind of clean up the balance sheet and consolidate everything to have a clear picture to bring to potential funders to say, look, this is an institution worth endowing. This makes the future operation easier for the institution. But in many senses, the college is a young entity despite being formed in 1860. You know, the history of BARD is really one that comes and grows with the appointment of Leon Botstein in '75. So, you know, we have work to do on the endowment. The perception of being wealthy isn't an entirely negative one for us, but I think the reality of what exists on our balance sheet is not the same to be compared with, especially places like Vassar and increasingly Marist. But outside of that, I mean, I think in terms of the public component and the public exemption on this, it's worth citing that we're the third largest employer in Dutchess County, only behind Nuvance and IBM. So, you know, we do employ more people locally and contribute to the tax base indirectly through all of that employment and local taxation. And it seemed that a lot of the public comments kind of revolved around the theme of this being seen as a subsidy to a private institution. And really what I see is that this is a carrot to investors. You know, this isn't investing public dollars. This is giving an attractive feature for bringing money into the institution. And then just more generally, you know, because this isn't purely a refinancing of the IDA bond, but it's cleaning up any of the outstanding debt of the institution. There's a lot of advantages to us in terms of just smoothing operation and actually just having a more stable model to work with in terms of the financing of the college. Right now, we have a whole series of collections of debts with different banks. I'm interested in closing that out. They all have different covenants, different reporting requirements. It's time that's better spent on focusing on really the bread and butter of what we do. And then in terms of DASNY or commercial finance, you know, because so much of this is refunding, I hadn't looked at this as, you know, looking at the various options that would be available because this wasn't all new construction. It seemed that working with LDC was a better partner. And as I said, working with commercial banks, there's very few locally that could deliver that level of financing. So without this intermediary.
Sure.
So I hope I touched on all parts of that, but if I missed anything, please, I'm happy to address it.
Acting Chairman Doyle, I just have a few more comments, if that's okay.
Yes, please carry on, Don.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you hit the items that I wanted resolution on. A further question would be, you know, the portion of the tax exemption which will be offered, or you'll have the ability to do, would be to avoid a mortgage recording tax exemption. And maybe Council Capolino, maybe you could break out how the mortgage tax exemption works, what portion would come to Dutchess County, so I know some goes to the MTA. It's not, Dutchess County is not losing the entire mortgage recording tax exemption. There are other people that get other portions of the government that receive those monies. Could you just speak to that if you could?
Yeah, the entire mortgage tax is 1.05%, and 0.3% of that goes to the MTA, and I believe it's 0.5, half a percent goes to the state, and then the remainder, I think it's 0.25, goes locally. But understand that and so the LDC's charge on this would be higher than that. But in addition to that, they could go to the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York, and the Dormitory Authority, any mortgage that was required for those bonds would also be tax exempt, so that they had that available to them as well. So this was a way of keeping things local, as Bard had asked for. And in the past, a good portion of this debt is IDA debt, and since 2008, the IDA was no longer handling these, what they called civic facilities. And in 2012, the LDC was created precisely for these civic facilities. So this is within what we wanted to do. And as the third largest employer in Dutchess County, and trying to keep them here and competitive, and take care and retain those jobs, is certainly within the purview and the purpose of the creation of the LDC.
Thank you.
If I could just add quickly, there also currently is no mortgage on the campus. So this is a way for us to achieve the most competitive rate. So it's not that there was a tax base that now we're eliminating, or that there was a line item of revenue for the county that we're trying to get rid of now. This is a new addition to the transaction.
Thank you. Thank you, Acting Chairman Doyle.
Oh, thank you very much, Don. Well, in my opinion, strong educational institutions in the Valley are very much to the benefit of the entire population here. And it's extremely encouraging, to me at least, that you're making such an investment in facilities, forward-looking investment, and generally am encouraged by that. So at this point, unless there are any other questions, just give a second to see if anybody responds. Sarah, do you have any further comments at all? I'm sorry.
No, so I have no more comments.
Very good. In that case, I'd like to call for a motion. Anybody like to make a motion in favor of passing this?
So moved.
And a second.
Who was the second?
I think Jamie raised his hand first.
Thank you.
Very good. Would you like to call the roll, please, Carolyn?
Mark Doyle,
Yes, in favor.
Kathy Bauer,
Approved.
Jamie Pacone,
In favor.
Don Sagliano,
In favor.
Al Torres Gianni,
In favor?
And any opposed? So hearing none, the motion passes. And thank you very much to all of you, and for the good information provided in this meeting. It was good to have your Bard presence here. I think we all benefited from that.
Well, on behalf of all of Bard, I thank you, and I especially appreciate the flexibility in coming together off cycle.
Certainly. Glad to do it. Thank you. Sarah, do you have any other comments for upcoming meetings?
So no, so we're scheduled to have our October 14th IDA and LDC meeting. We'll be the main subject for discussion will be the approval of the budget. The Finance and Audit Committee did meet a couple weeks ago to discuss it. So we'll be presenting the 2021 budget for approval at the next meeting. The other announcement that I have is that the Dutchess County Legislature has approved a new board member. I hope to be able to meet with her and do her board orientation before the next board meeting. But at the very least, she will be in attendance. Her name is Amy Bombardieri. And I'm sorry, I have a hard time with Italian names.
That's good news.
So yeah, so we will have a new addition at our next meeting.
Excellent. All right, then. I will call for, I don't think we need a vote for adjournment. So we'll go ahead and adjourn and hope to see you all on the 14th.
Okay, have a great weekend. Oh,
Thank
Al.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.